If you are a longtime solo shot listener, you know that 96 times out of 100, I am not going to prioritize a stack over a pitcher. And the reasoning for that is that stacks are harder to predict. There's a lot more volatility in hitting than there is in pitching. So I want to go the more predictable route, also like the higher upside route, because pitching gets you a lot of points. If you get 70 points from Garrett Cole, you can make a lot of mistakes with your stacks. For today, we're going to flip that because I think that the number one priority on Thursday's main MLB DFS slate is stacking the Cincinnati Reds at Coors Field. We're going to break down why I want to stack the Reds and which pitchers I can use, which all other stacks I can use in order to make the Reds more affordable at Coors. So let's dive on in and get you set. Welcome on into the Solo Shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to preview Thursday's 6-game main slate with lock set for 7:10 this evening. There are no weather notes for today, and that's important because we have the game at Coors Field. And in the past week or so, it's been very cold in Denver. That is not the case today. 73 degrees first pitch temperature. So we're good to go, good to stack it up, and I definitely want to do so for today. As always, we are back here once again later today at 4 p.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages, answering your questions about tonight's MLB DFS slate. That goes live at 4 p.m. Eastern. Hit me up there with any questions you may have. We'll go until 4:30. Back again tomorrow with that as well. Also, a lot of stuff here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Tom Vecchio wrapping up the regular seasons for the NHL and the NBA with the Daily ISO and the Daily Deke. That is here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Austin Swaim is talking a big UFC card coming up on Saturday. That'll go up tomorrow morning. And also a NASCAR podcast for Dover, recording tomorrow 10:30 on YouTube and up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed immediately after that. So make sure you're subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear or if you win some money, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, baseball fans, FanDuel is offering a special selection of MLB contests. Play in the daily MLB Hot Streak eligible contest from now to May 21st to build your streak and win daily cash prizes. Have at least one lineup finish in the top 50% of the daily contest, and your streak continues. If your lineup does not finish in the top half, it ends, and you can start a new one the next day. Build the longest streak for a chance at the $15,000 grand prize. Start your winning streak today with FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel.com/MLB-hot-streak for more information. Eligibility restrictions apply. Pitching preview for this Thursday main slate. Trevor Rogers is the highest salaried pitcher on FanDuel, checking in at $9,900. Christian Javier is $9,200. Sean Manaea, $88. Zach Plesac is $84. And Garrett Richards rounds up the top group at $8,100. And again, our mindset for today is I need to make it easier for me to stack Coors Field. Part of that will come from one of the stacks we want to discuss, a lot of low-salaried hitters there. But it also impacts the way we view pitching for today. And that's part of why I have Zach Plesac number one for today. And if you're a longtime listener, you know I don't talk about Plesac very often. I think I've been lower than consensus on him for a good while now. And that didn't really go that well for me last year, where he did really well. I was not in on most of those starts, but he's been making some changes recently. And his salary is low at $8,400 because he hasn't gotten off to a great start so far this year. And I think that might be enough to get me to buy in. Ryan Lewis of the Beacon Journal wrote this past week about Plesac's changes that he made. Specifically, Plesac moved where he's standing on the mound. He also altered his curveball grip after talking to Shane Bieber. If you're going to talk to someone about curveball, Shane Bieber seems like a good guy. And you can see the changes that Plesac has made within his data. His velocity shot up about 2 miles per hour in his fifth start of the season. The curveball change likely came the start before that because the velocity on that pitch went up. The movement changed in a pretty big way. So I think the inflection point for Plesac on the curveball was 4 starts ago, whereas the velocity was 3 starts ago. So that leads me to believe our most relevant sample on Plesac is his past 3 starts. That's with the increased velocity and the new curveball. His swinging strike rate in that time is 12.4%. That is much closer to last year. That means his strikeout rate should increase as the sample expands. He has a 60% ground ball rate in that time as well. So getting ground balls getting some whiffs. And those matchups that he had in those games were tougher than the offense he has tonight. He faced the Twins, White Sox, and Reds. They're all ranked 8th or better in WRC plus against righties, whereas the Mariners are 20th. The Mariners will probably get better with Jared Kelenic up, but they're not a great offense either way. So it is kind of weird for me where I've been lower than consensus on Plesac for what feels like a very long time now, and that feels strange, but I'm looking to buy him here specifically on this slate. If it works out, I'd be good going back to him again in the future because I think, again, these are tangible changes that have made impacts in the places we want impact. I think he grades out well enough for me tonight, and it makes it easy to get to the Reds in Coors Field. So $8,400, a good salary for Plesac, and my top pitcher for tonight. Now, because we do have a lower salaried stack in there, I think that we can get to the Reds as a stack while still spending a little bit more a pitcher than we have with Plesac at $8,400. So that allows me to go to Christian Javier at $9,200. And Javier does have some issues as a starter. He's not a perfect option by any means, but I do think he grades out well enough today against the Rangers. Javier's most relevant sample is his past 4 starts because kind of following the Jose Urquidy path here where he's using his changeup more in that time. It's still not a high usage pitch for him, but throwing it more. And that rise started 4 starts ago. It wasn't as high as it is now, but it was increasing, and it does give us a larger sample than just the past 3 starts. And if we look at the past 4 starts for Javier, he has a 30% strikeout rate. That is tied for the highest mark on the slate, and that meshes well with the Rangers' 28% strikeout rate against righties. So high strikeout guy, facing a high strikeout team, not a super restrictive salary. Why wouldn't I put him above Plesac, who I tend to be pretty skeptical of? The big issue for me is that Javier does have some flaws in his profile, and he is higher salaried. He's walking a lot of guys, giving up hard contact. He has an 11% walk rate in that time, which is highest on the slate. His 12% barrel rate, also highest on the slate. And that did bite him a couple of times. He let up 5 runs and 2 homers to the Blue Jays, let up 3 earned runs to the Rays, but he also mowed through the Angels and the Mariners at the start of the streak. So Javier has a wide range of outcomes. He's volatile, and that's why I don't view him as being a must, even with the likely high strikeout rate. But I think that he's worthy of inclusion because of that volatility. Volatility in DFS is a good thing if it means you have a high end on your range of outcomes. I think Javier does have that. That upside matters a lot as well. We do have to acknowledge that the floor is shaky due to the walks and the hard contact, and even with the strikeouts, the Rangers haven't been terrible this year. So I'm still going to go to Javier for sure, but I feel very okay ranking him behind Plesac as far as the guys at the top of the pool for tonight. So it's Plesac 1, Javier 2, and I feel pretty firm about those standings. For the third slot, I do want to dip down even a bit more. Plesac at 84, technically a value play, but again, we're trying to stack the Reds. There's another high salaried stack I want to get to too. So let's get some flexibility. We can get that via Jameson Taillon. He went 99 pitches last time out. So that to me says we got the green light to use Taillon at $7,700. He's facing the Rays here. Similar discussion to what we had with Garrett Cole last night, where the Rays are not a plus matchup, but they're definitely not a negative. And Taillon is good enough to be usable in a what I would deem to be a neutral matchup. He's looked really good since his return. Across 6 starts, Taillon has a 3.27 skill interactive ERA with a 29% strikeout rate. He actually ranks 2nd on this slate in skill interactive ERA and 3rd in strikeout rate. He's also not walking many guys. The reason I'm not higher on Taillon, given that he does have a higher strikeout rate than Plesac and grades out pretty well in some areas, is that he is letting up a lot of hard contact. If you remember back in 2018, Taillon added a slider partway through the year, and he's kept that slider up. And sliders sometimes lead to hard contact. That's true with Taillon right now. He has an 11.7% barrel rate allowed, which is why his ERA is 5.02. That's not enough to cross him off, though. His expected ERA via Baseball Savant is 2.97, so there's been some bad luck in there, and his skill interactive ERA is low, meaning the skills are there too. Skill interactive ERA sometimes can overrate guys who allow too much hard contact, and maybe it'll overrate Taillon, but I think he's going to grade out pretty well regardless. I feel good about him in this spot, feel good enough about him to put him 3rd on my list. And I do want to make sure I have some of him in my player pool. I think that if I were tiering out the pitchers, I would say Plesac, Javier, and Tyone are all in the same tier, and I'm comfortable using any of them. So I'll probably have pretty even exposure across the three for tonight, and then make my core be stacking the Reds. So let's talk about the Reds. Talk about why I am prioritizing them for today. It doesn't get a lot better than what they have facing Chichi Gonzalez at Coors Field in warm weather. Again, it's not 41 degrees. It's 73. That's why the Reds are the focal point of this slate. The main reason is that Gonzalez lets up a lot of balls in play. He has made 5 starts so far this year, and in those 5 starts, he has a 5.43 skill interactive ERA with an 11% strikeout rate. Both those numbers are the worst marks for a pitcher on this slate. His barrel rate is 7.1%, which is not bad, but it's not because he gets ground balls. He has a 39% ground ball rate. And in those numbers, he's got to be an outlier to overcome the low strikeout numbers, and he's not. The Reds also have been very good this year. They have a 113 WRC plus against righties. Tons of fly balls, tons of power this year. I'm probably going to, pick my pitcher and then just start peppering in Reds to see what I can do. I do think, again, there is a lower salaried stack I could put in there to see how much flexibility I have to get to the upper tier guys in the Reds, but this is the focal point. Getting to the Reds is the key for me on Thursday night slate. So that's how we'll be playing things here. I think that Nick Senzel hitting higher in the order recently. He's $3,000, just a 4.9% barrel rate, but not a lot of strikeouts. He's got some speed. Speed matters a lot at Coors Field, too. I think that we talked about the power, but speed matters, too, because the huge outfield at Coors Field means more balls you put in play will fall in because the outfield's just so big. The outfielders can't cover all that ground. So you're more likely to get on first base, get a single, get on first base, and a single can turn into 9 points really fast here if you got speed. So I like everyone here, but I think Senzel does make the studs easier to get to because his salary is low at $3,000. So Nick Senzel, someone I'm very willing to go to despite not jaw-dropping numbers so far this year. I do think he makes a lot of sense in this spot. Now, outside of spending down a pitcher, the other way to stack the Reds is by finding another low-salary team for our second stack. And I think the Marlins could be that tonight. Now, they're not a great offense. I was planning on using a pitcher against them the past 2 nights. Did use Madison Bumgarner. Didn't get to use Zach Gallen because he was put on the injured list at the last second. But there's a big difference between Gallen and Bumgarner and Merrill Kelly, who is starting for tonight. The big difference is strikeouts. Those guys get them. Kelly doesn't in general. And to Kelly's credit, his strikeout rate is rising. He has been throwing his changeup a bit more recently, and over his past 5 starts, his strikeout rate is 20%. That's better than it was before, so that's good. But it's still the 3rd lowest mark on this slate, and he's still letting up hard contact. He's allowed a 9.2% barrel rate in that time, not too many ground balls. The results have gotten better for Kelly, and like I said, things are better than they were. I'm just wondering if they're better enough to make us stop stacking against him. I'm going to keep on going there for now. We could reevaluate if he continues to get good results, if he continues to increase that strikeout rate. But for right now, I'm okay stacking against him. It does help that Phoenix hot, and they tend to leave the roof open for the most part as well, which means the Marlins are in a decent spot for today. But the big appeal is the salary savings. Jesus Aguilar is the only guy on the Marlins with a salary higher than $3,000. He is $3,400. Adam Duvall strikes out a lot, but also has a lot of power. He is $2,700. I'm also down for Isan Diaz at $2,400 or $2,500. He had a good prospect pedigree back in the day when he was with the Brewers, but then had a broken hamate bone, couldn't stay healthy, couldn't quite get things going, lost a battle for the starting job in spring training to Jazz Chisholm, which obviously worked out well for Jazz. But Diaz, ever since coming up, is hitting the ball well this year, and he did leave last night's game with an illness, but if he plays today, I'll be in on him. So Aguilar, Duvall, Diaz, all these guys are options you can turn to make it easier to stack the Reds. So if you want to go Javier with Reds, I think the Marlins probably the top stack here. But if you go with Plesac or Tyone, you've got a little bit more flexibility to go with a non-value second stack. And that's where, to me, we turn to the Houston Astros. We're going to have some salary flexibility for today, especially because like Tyone and Plesac have the low salaries. The Reds, not crazy restrictive. The Astros, also a team I would like to get to for today. They're facing Mike Foltynewicz. Foltynewicz is looking like his 2019 self in both the good and the bad sense. He has almost the exact same ERA, the exact same strikeout rate as back then, and his velocity did go up his last time out. So it's possible that Foltynewicz getting back into form, and it's possible he'll go on a good stretch here. But he's letting up a ton of dingers. His strikeout rate still isn't that high, and those two things could get him in trouble against the Astros. If we look specifically at that one game where Foltynewicz had the increased velocity, he was facing the Mariners at home. He had just a 7.0% swinging strike rate. That's pretty low, and that's against a much higher strikeout rate offense than Houston's. They also barreled him up twice, and that's actually not abnormal for this year. Foltynewicz has an 11.9% barrel rate against this year. That is the second highest on the slate. He's let up multiple barrels in 5 of 7 starts, and he let up 3 in 2 of those starts. Even if the strikeouts do go up with the increased velocity, there will still be homer potential here because of all the hard contact Foltynewicz is allowing. Houston does not strike out. They're going to put the ball in play. And based on Foltynewicz's track record this year, those balls in play are likely to be well struck. That puts me on the Astros here when I have the salary to get there, and I think I will a decent number of times for today. We do want to favor the lefties here. I know there aren't a ton, but we do want to bump up the actual lefties the Astros have. Foltynewicz, small sample, but a 15% strikeout rate versus lefties, 27% against righties. So I'm bumping up Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, and Michael Brantley. I'm not usually a Brantley guy. He's fine, but not the highest upside hitter. So I think today I'm more willing to use him than usual. And he's also the lowest salaried guy of those lefties. And as always, I do want to get to Carlos Correa, $2,900. He's been good this year. I'm confused why he's always so low, but I'll use him. That's fine. I can be the only person here. That's fine with me. I think that he makes sense as a righty for today with a low salary, again, helping me stack the Reds. Let's finish up with things to watch. I did not talk about Trevor Rogers in the pitching section. There are a couple of reasons for that, and absolutely none of them relate to his talent. If it were talent alone, he'd be the top guy by a wide margin. But the first thing is that the salary is high at $9,900. The second thing is that he is facing a low strikeout opponent in the Diamondbacks. They have a 21% strikeout rate against lefties this year. It was low last year as well, so I expect that to continue. Third, the pitch counts for Rogers are still low. They have him on an innings limit of 150 innings. They have not let him get past 95 pitches. He's hit 90 just twice so far this year, and because of the innings limit, I'm not expecting that to change. So we have two factors here that are limiting the ceiling of Rogers: the matchup with a low strikeout team and the pitch count. And it's on a slate where we have other viable options at lower salaries. That's enough for me to pass up Rogers for just tonight. I would like to get here again. And if his pitch count goes up, if he hits 100 once, I'll be in forever. So for now, I'm okay passing up on Rogers, but he's amazing. So I hope we can get to use him down the line. It's nothing to do with his talent, all to do with circumstances outside of his control. We'll be back here again in the hopefully very near future. The Mariners are going to be a fun team to watch tonight. I mentioned Jared Kelenic making his debut, but he's facing Zach Plesac, and we like Plesac as a pitcher, so we'll avoid Kelenic. But Logan Gilbert's also making his debut. Another top prospect for the Mariners, so congrats Mariners fans on a fun night tonight. Gilbert looked awesome in a AAA start last week. He had a 17.9% swinging strike rate. That's likely high enough where I don't want to stack Cleveland against him. I might wind up there because there aren't a ton of options, but I don't want to seek them out. I think he'll be pretty good. So if I can avoid Cleveland hitters, I would like to do so. But just because it's a small slate, I might wind up there inherently, but I'm absolutely not seeking them out for today. Instead of Cleveland, I'd rather go and stack Oakland. They're facing Garrett Richards. He is getting back to his ground ball ways that he had earlier in his career. That's why Oakland is lower on this list, but he's still going to let up base runners. He has a 22% strikeout rate with a 10% walk rate. The A's get a massive park factor upgrade and go into Fenway, where the temperatures have risen for today. They are outside the top 3 stacks for me for sure. I would definitely rank the Astros and the Marlins ahead of them, but if I do need extra hitters, I am okay scoping out Oakland and see what pops up there. So I think a pretty fun slate for tonight. Again, I don't get to go crazy with hitters all that often, but I think given the combination of highly logical stacks with high salaries, and lower salaried pitchers who can get strikeouts, I think we can make the case for tonight for doing that, and I will absolutely be doing so. That is all the time that we have for today. As a reminder, make sure you swing back today, 4 p.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages, and fire away with your questions about tonight's main slate. We'll get to all those there, talk MLB, DFS process, or whatever else is on your mind. Also, make sure to subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed for all your NBA, NHL, MLB, UFC, NASCAR, and PGA DFS needs. If you have questions for me before 4 p.m., I am on Twitter at JimSannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for setting up the video broadcast for today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow for Friday's slate. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.